I smiled and said, "I love you too," while planning my revenge. She had no idea what was coming next. I still remember the moment I first saw her. 5 years ago, at Jake and Emma's wedding, under the twinkling lights of that garden reception. Sienna stood across the room, laughing at something someone had said, her head tilted back just enough to catch the light in her chestnut hair. I couldn't look away. "That's Sienna," my friend whispered, noticing my stare. "Emma's college roommate. Go talk to her." I didn't need encouragement. That night felt written in the stars, seated at the same table, discovering our shared love for obscure indie films and backpacking trips. When we danced, her perfume clouded my senses. By midnight, we were kissing on the dance floor, oblivious to the whoops and hollers from our friends. "Looks like Noah's found his match," someone shouted. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. How could I have known that moment would eventually destroy me? We lost touch for a week after the wedding. I convinced myself it was just a magical night, nothing more. Then my phone lit up with her message. "Can't stop thinking about you." 2 years of perfect dating led to an impromptu proposal at her favorite hiking spot. She cried, said yes immediately. We married within a year. I thought I'd won the lottery of life. Successful career, beautiful wife, the future stretching bright before us. The changes were subtle at first. Her phone suddenly gained password protection. "Just for work privacy," she explained with a dismissive smile. Girls' nights multiplied, sometimes with her not coming home until morning. "We drank too much. I crashed at Lisa's," she'd say, avoiding my eyes. Our bedroom, once alive with passion, grew cold. When I reached for her, she'd turn away. "Not tonight. I'm exhausted." If I tried to discuss these changes, she'd laugh softly. "You're imagining things, Noah. Everything's perfect." But everything wasn't perfect. I noticed her tense when her phone buzzed, saw how quickly she'd silence calls when I entered the room. I told myself I was being paranoid, that marriage just settles into comfortable routines. My friend Theo warned me once. "You seem stressed, man. Everything okay with you and Sienna?" I brushed it off, defended her. What kind of husband suspects his wife without evidence? The evidence would come soon enough. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking things. Maybe this was normal, the cooling of passion, the separate lives that develop after the honeymoon phase ends. But each night she came home smelling of unfamiliar cologne, each canceled lunch date with me citing work emergencies, every password change on her devices. They all piled up like snow on a fragile branch. One sleepless night, while Sienna snored softly beside me, I remembered reading about affairs and where people hide evidence. I'd already checked her phone during a shower, nothing suspicious. Almost too clean, as if meticulously maintained. The perfect cover. That night, I slipped out of bed and walked to our garage. Her car sat there, moonlight reflecting off its polished surface. I hesitated, feeling like a trespasser in my own life. But I opened the door and searched the glove compartment beneath the seats, inside the center console. There it was, a second phone tucked under the driver's seat. Basic model. No password. My hands trembled as I turned it on. Only one contact. No name, just a number I recognized immediately. The messages stretched back 14 months. Photos I wish I could unsee. Plans for hotel meetups when I was traveling for work. Passionate declarations. Inside jokes about me. Derek. My fucking friend, Derek. The same guy who shook my hand at our barbecue last month, who brought his fiancée Madeline to our anniversary dinner, who texted me, "Bros night soon," just last week. I sat in that cold garage for hours, methodically taking screenshots, forwarding everything to my email. My chest felt hollow, like someone had carved out everything inside me with a dull spoon. By morning, I had a plan. No confrontation yet, no dramatic scene. I called a divorce attorney from my office, printed every message, every photo. I documented joint finances, gathered evidence of assets. Sienna noticed nothing different when she kissed me goodbye that morning. "Love you," she said cheerfully. I smiled back. "Love you too." The perfect lie, but now I was the one telling it. For 2 weeks, I maintained the charade. Every morning I'd kiss her goodbye, every evening I'd nod at her stories. But inside I was hollow, a walking shell executing a plan. I stopped asking about her day. I no longer initiated conversation. When she touched me, I found excuses to move away. My attorney advised documenting everything. Keep your emotions in check, he warned. Don't tip your hand. So I recorded dates, times, conversations. I moved half our savings to a separate account. I found an apartment and paid 3 months' rent in advance. At first, Sienna didn't notice my withdrawal. Too preoccupied with her secret life, I guess. But gradually, her behavior shifted. She started cooking my favorite meals. She'd ask detailed questions about my work. One night, she even initiated sex, something that hadn't happened in months. I turned away. Not feeling well, I muttered. She stared at me, confusion clouding her eyes. Are you okay? You've been different lately. Just tired, I replied, turning my back to her. The next day, I texted her mid-afternoon. Come home now, we need to talk. She called immediately. I let it ring through to voicemail. She burst through the door 40 minutes later, face flushed. What's wrong? Your text scared me. I sat at our dining table, the stack of printed evidence arranged neatly before me. 15 minutes, I said evenly. That's exactly how long it takes to drive from here to Derek's place. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? Without speaking, I slid the first page across the table. A screenshot of explicit texts between her and Derek, dated from last Christmas, the night she'd claimed to be at her office party. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, eyes widening as I pushed more pages toward her. Photos she'd sent him, hotel receipts, a timeline of their affair meticulously documented. It was just a stupid joke, she tried. I remained silent. Well, what did you expect? Her voice turned sharp. You're never emotionally available, always working. When was the last time you really saw me? I kept my expression neutral, which only fueled her desperation. You're not even a good husband. Do you want to know why I went to Derek? He listens. He makes me feel wanted. He's twice the man you are in bed. A bitter laugh escaped me. I slammed my palm on the table, making her jump. You just dug your own grave. What does that mean? It means I've hired a divorce attorney. You'll be served papers tomorrow. Pack what you need and get out of my house. The color returned to her face in angry splotches. Noah, please. I made a mistake. I love you. Don't. She fell to her knees, grabbing for my hands. We can fix this. People recover from affairs all the time. I'll do therapy, whatever you want. I stepped back, her fingers clutching air. I will never touch you again. You can't throw away 5 years. She was sobbing now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Where am I supposed to go? I suggest Derek's, I said coldly. Though I wonder if Madeline might have something to say about that. Her eyes widened with fresh horror. You wouldn't. Pack your things. You have until tomorrow. I walked upstairs to the guest room, her wails following me. I closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and finally allowed my hands to shake. Phase 1 was complete, but my plan for Derek was just beginning. I waited until exactly 8 a.m. the next day to send the mass text. Sienna and I are divorcing. She's been having an affair with Derek for over a year. I have proof. Please respect my privacy during this time. My phone exploded immediately. My mother called first, her voice tight with fury. That little bitch, I never trusted her. Dad was more measured but equally supportive. Whatever you need, son. Sienna's family reacted predictably. Her father's disappointed silence. Her mother's defensive hostility. There must be some misunderstanding. Sienna would never... I hung up mid-sentence. Only Isla, Sienna's younger sister, surprised me. She showed up at my door that afternoon, eyes red-rimmed. I'm so sorry, Noah. I had no idea. None of us did. Except them. Mom's convinced you're making it up. She's always idolized Sienna. She hesitated. Can I see the proof? I showed her one message thread. Nothing explicit. Her face crumpled. That's enough. God, how could she do this to you? To herself? She hugged me tightly. I don't care what Mom says. I'm here for you. That same day, I met Madeline at a coffee shop across town. We'd only met a handful of times at group gatherings. She was pretty in a wholesome way, always eager to please Derek. The thought of what I was about to do made me sick. but she deserved to know. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. "Your text was concerning. What's going on?" Her eyes were wide, innocent. "Open it." I watched her expression transform as she flipped through the screenshots. Confusion, disbelief, devastation. Her hands trembled. "3 weeks before our wedding," she whispered. "How long have you known?" "2 weeks. I wanted proof before I told you." She nodded, tears streaming silently. "I appreciate that. What you do now is your decision. I won't judge either way." She straightened her spine, wiped her eyes. "There's no decision to make. It's over." Theo called that night, his voice a mixture of rage and guilt. "I introduced them, man. At your fucking wedding, how could he do this?" "People aren't always who we think they are," I replied, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Around midnight, headlights flooded my living room. A car door slammed, then pounding on my front door. "Noah, open this goddamn door right now!" Sienna's voice was slurred, hysterical. I texted Theo, who lived nearby. "Sienna's here, drunk. Witness, please?" "You ruined everything," she screamed, rattling the doorknob. "You told Madeline. She kicked him out. Where's he supposed to go now?" I remained silent, recording on my phone. "Answer me!" Something shattered against my door, a bottle from the sound of it. Theo arrived just as Sienna was attempting to break my living room window with a garden stone. He tried to calm her, but she scratched his face before police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. I watched from the window as officers restrained her, still screaming my name as they guided her into the back seat. The next morning, Isla appeared with groceries. She moved quietly through my kitchen, making coffee and eggs. "Heard about last night?" she said, setting a plate before me. "Mom posted her bail." Of course she did. Isla sat across from me, her eyes kind. "You may not be my brother-in-law anymore, but you're still family to me." Something in my chest loosened slightly, the first genuine feeling beyond rage or pain in weeks. As I signed the final divorce papers the following day, I felt oddly calm. The storm had passed. Sienna was broken. Derek was alone. Justice of a sort. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The morning after Sienna's meltdown, Isla called. "Mom and Dad are frantically calling every lawyer in town. They want to bail her out." "Not my problem," I replied. "She's facing multiple charges: DUI, destruction of property, assault. Theo's filing a report about the scratches." I rubbed my eyes. "Good." "Noah," Isla hesitated. "Sienna's a mess. Mom says she hasn't stopped crying." Again, not my problem. 2 days later, my attorney Michelle called. Sienna's lawyer reached out. They want to discuss settlement terms. "No negotiation," I said firmly. "She gets what she came into the marriage with, half the house proceeds, and half our joint savings. That's it." "And if she refuses?" "Then we go to court, and I make every disgusting detail public record." Michelle's smile was audible. "I'll convey your terms." Sienna requested a meeting. Against Michelle's advice, I agreed, but only at her office with her present. I needed to see Sienna's face one last time. She looked awful when she walked in. Gaunt, unwashed hair, eyes bloodshot. She'd lost at least 10 pounds in 2 weeks. "Noah," she whispered, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back. Michelle cleared her throat. "Mrs. Reynolds, please keep your hands to yourself." "I just need 5 minutes alone with him," Sienna pleaded. "That's not happening," Michelle replied. Tears filled Sienna's eyes. "Noah, please. Don't take this to court. Don't make everything public. We had such good times. I made a terrible mistake, but I still love you." I studied her face, searching for any remnant of feeling within myself. There was nothing, just empty space where love had been. "You love me?" My voice was eerily calm. "If you loved me, why were you sleeping with Derek before we even got married? If you loved me, why did you continue for over a year?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Sienna? Explain it to me." She collapsed into sobs, head on the table. "I don't know. I was stupid, selfish. I thought I could have everything." "Well, now you have nothing." She signed the papers that day. The fight had gone out of her. The next weekend, I hired movers to pack Sienna's belongings. I documented everything meticulously. Photographs, videos, itemized lists, all sent to Michelle for safekeeping. I wasn't taking chances with false accusations. Isla came to supervise, apologizing repeatedly for her family's behavior. Mom still thinks there must be some explanation. Dad hasn't said a word to anyone in days. And Sienna? Living in their guest room, barely eating. Her boss called yesterday. She hasn't shown up for work in a week. I nodded, feeling nothing. As we finished, Isla hugged me tightly. She destroyed herself, Noah. You deserve someone better. I watched the moving truck pull away, taking the last physical traces of Sienna from my life. 4 weeks later, Michelle called. It's official. You're divorced. I thanked her, hung up, and opened the envelope that arrived that morning. The divorce decree stared back at me, cold and final. I tore it in half and dropped the pieces into my fireplace, watching as the flames consumed the paper. That night, Theo brought over whiskey. We sat on my back porch, staring at the stars. So what now? He asked. I don't know. The truth was, I hadn't thought beyond this moment. For months, my sole focus had been dismantling my marriage with surgical precision. Now that it was done, I felt oddly directionless. Heard anything about Derek? I shook my head. After Madeline kicked him out, Derek had disappeared. Blocked everyone on social media, changed his number. Even his parents claimed not to know where he was staying. But I would find him. That part of my plan wasn't finished. One day at a time, Theo said, refilling our glasses. You survived, brother. Had I, though? Something vital had died inside me. Trust, perhaps, or the belief in happily ever after. I sipped my whiskey, feeling the burn. One day at a time, I echoed. I was free. But freedom, I was discovering, could feel a lot like emptiness. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Theo at our usual bar. He had news. Derek's a wreck, he said, nursing his beer. Lost his job at the firm. Apparently showing up drunk for client meetings doesn't go over well. I nodded, feeling neither satisfaction nor pity. And Sienna? Living with her parents still, Isla says she barely leaves her room. Their mom finally stopped defending her when those texts leaked to their extended family. I didn't leak those, I clarified. Theo smirked. I might have helped justice along. The real estate agent called the next morning. I had an offer on the house. 15% above asking price. No inspection required. I accepted immediately. As I handed the keys to the new owners, a young couple with a toddler and another baby on the way, I felt a weight lift. Their excitement reminded me of how Sienna and I had once been, but the memory no longer stung. That weekend, I drove to my cabin in the mountains. Isla rode shotgun, windows down, hair whipping in the breeze. Since the divorce, our friendship had deepened into something unexpected but welcome. She understood my pain in ways others couldn't. It's beautiful up here, she said as we unloaded groceries. The afternoon sun sparkled on the lake, pine trees swaying in the gentle breeze. We grilled steaks, drank wine on the deck, and watched the sunset paint the mountains gold. For the first time in over a year, I felt peace. Later, as embers glowed in the fire pit, Isla turned to me. Do you think this is the beginning of something better? I stared across the lake, taking a deep breath of pine-scented air. The stars reflected in the still water, infinite possibilities in their light. Not just better, I said finally. It's a completely new life. She smiled, tucking her knees under her chin. I'm glad you invited me here. Me too. In the morning, I woke before dawn and hiked to the ridge above the cabin. As the sun rose, painting the world in soft pinks and golds, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal had broken me, yes, but standing there watching a new day begin, I realized something important. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was ready to live again. Sometimes endings become beginnings in disguise.